Tonight on NewsWatch, targeting America. Authorities accuse a Saudi national of plotting to bomb a nuclear power plant and the home of a former president.
Plus, bloodshed in Libya. Supporters of Muammar Gaddafi opened fire on their own countrymen.
And pain at the pump. The conflicts in the Middle East could mean you'll be paying more for a gallon of gas. All this and more tonight on NewsWatch. He was in our country allegedly targeting nuclear power plants and the man he called a tyrant. Good evening, I'm Lee Webb.
And I'm Wendy Griffith. The FBI has arrested a man from Saudi Arabia for plotting to bomb the home of former President George W. Bush. Mark Martin joins us now from the CBN newsroom with the latest. Mark.
Wendy, investigators say the young college student had been studying chemical engineering in Texas. They say he bought explosive chemicals over the internet and planned to do a lot of harm. Authorities arrested 20-year-old Khalid Ali Al-Ansari yesterday. They say the Saudi national purchased the chemicals needed to build bombs. They claim Al-Ansari planned to hide bomb materials inside dolls and baby carriages to blow up nuclear plants, dams, or President George W. Bush's Dallas home. One of the companies the suspect contacted to buy the chemicals became suspicious and contacted the FBI. That's when federal agents searched his apartment and found extremist writings and internet postings. Al-Ansari reportedly wrote, "It is war until the infidels leave defeated." Al-Ansari is here in the U.S. legally on a student visa. Investigators say he entered the country in 2008 from Saudi Arabia to study at Texas Tech University. Prosecutors have charged Al-Ansari with attempted use of a weapon of mass destruction. And Wendy, he is expected to appear tomorrow in federal court.
Mark, why does the FBI believe he was targeting President Bush?
Authorities say he wrote an email that mentioned a, quote, tyrant's house with the address of President Bush's home. Also in emails Al-Ansari apparently sent himself, he listed the names of 12 dams in Colorado and California. In addition, investigators say Al-Ansari's diary showed the young man had been planning an attack for years and obtained a scholarship so he could get on American soil to carry out jihad. Wendy?
A diabolical scheme indeed. Thank you so much, Mark. And CBN News terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck is on the phone with us now. Eric, Al-Ansari was in the country on a student visa. You've reported about this program before. Did this surprise you?
No, Wendy, I saw this coming. I first reported on this a few years ago for CBN News. This is a program, ironically enough, that began under the very man that Al-Ansari was targeting, President Bush. Under the Bush administration, the U.S. began bringing thousands of Saudi students to American universities to study as part of a cultural exchange program. Now, Wendy, as we know, 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were young Saudi males, yet the U.S. now is bringing thousands of young Saudi males to study here, and we see the fruits of it with this latest arrest.
Well, what else do we know about this guy, Eric?
Well, very interesting. Looking at Al-Ansari's Facebook page, Wendy, a lot of his Facebook friends are big fans, as is Al-Ansari, of a guy named Saad Al-Faqa. Now, Al-Faqa is a Saudi. He lives in London, and I sat down with him exclusively last year for CBN News, interviewed him in his home. He's a bad guy, Wendy. He's a wanted terrorist. The U.S. wants him. Even the UN has designated him as a global terrorist. So to see this young Saudi who was arrested today be a fan of Saad Al-Faqa is no surprise, and we've focused on him exclusively on CBN News. You might hear a lot more about him in the days to come.
All right, disturbing developments. Eric Stakelbeck, thanks for that update.
Thank you, Wendy.
And out of the bloody violence in Libya, where anti-government forces are vowing to take that country's capital. Our senior international correspondent George Thomas joins us now for the latest.
That's right. The Libyan president, Muammar Gaddafi, he took to the airwaves tonight comparing himself to Queen Elizabeth as a symbolic head of state. And he also blamed Osama bin Laden for the revolt. He also insisted that he, and he alone, had the moral authority to rule the country. This as oil prices continue to surge on worries of Middle East instability. Key Libyan towns along the Mediterranean Sea are now in the hands of rebels. This was the scene in Benghazi, the second largest city in Libya. Fireworks erupting as thousands celebrated the fall of that city. and reportedly the fight for Benghazi was fierce. This is amateur video smuggled out of Libya. In between screams of Allahu Akbar, which means God is great in Arabic, tracer fire is seen lighting up the night sky, people taking cover next to a wall to avoid being injured. Several towns in the western part of the country have reportedly fallen, with growing numbers of the Libyan army joining the opposition ranks. Now all eyes are on Tripoli, the capital, where gun battles erupted Thursday between Gaddafi loyalists and his supporters who are vowing to liberate the city. The chaos has global markets on edge, and here's why. Libya produces 2% of the world's oil, and now there are real fears the instability hitting countries across this region could spread to Saudi Arabia, the #1 producer of oil in the world. Economists worry that a significant surge in oil prices could affect the economic recovery here at home.
$150 a barrel, that's the previous peak. That probably will be too much to bear. We'll be back in recession.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia said tonight that it will consider boosting its oil production to make up for any shortfall coming out of Libya. Analysts believe it could take the Saudis roughly 24 hours to up its oil output by 1 million barrels per day. Lee?
George, what is the potential of unrest happening in Saudi Arabia?
Very, very significant. There's a Facebook page calling for a major demonstration in Saudi Arabia on March 11th. Look, what's happening today in Libya is horrible. The Italian government says close to 2,000 people may have lost their lives in Libya. But Saudi Arabia, folks need to understand, Saudi Arabia is the big kahuna in the Middle East. It is the world's largest producer of oil. And if this country were to fall into the hands of Shiite Muslims, you can imagine the implication of that. Now you would have Bahrain, predominantly Shia, a large portion of the Saudi population is Shiite. The Iranian influence across the Middle East would be huge, and the oil prices would be tremendous. I mean, it would be beyond what we would even imagine if instability were to spread to Saudi Arabia.
As that analyst said, we could be headed for a recession if
That's
that happens. George, thank you. And protesters seeking to overturn dictators have been active in much of the Middle East. Each highlighted country has seen significant protest. The big question is, will they lead to democracy or more tyranny? CBN News asked former Soviet dissident Natan Sharansky about his perspective on these earth-shaking events.
Natan Sharansky spent 9 years behind bars for opposing tyranny in the former Soviet Union. His imprisonment made him a universal symbol for those oppressed under dictatorships. He's optimistic about what's happening throughout the Arab world.
We have to understand that this revolt of Arab street against dictators something natural, something which will inevitably happen. No dictatorship can keep the people under control all the time.
Since his release in 1986, Sharansky has championed democracy and spread his views through his influential book, The Case for Democracy. For too long, he says, the West has supported Arab dictators and now must support genuine democratic reform.
We will give all our support, we will give our recognition, we will give our money, but on the condition of democratic reform.
But Sharansky says those reforms are much more than just free and fair elections.
Freedom, it's not about immediate elections. Freedom, it's free elections and a free society. And the most important thing that these democratic changes cannot happen one day. There have to be few years of democratic reforms, of building institutions.
He cites one dangerous example from 2006, when the U.S. State Department wanted Hamas to participate in elections. The result, Hamas won a majority in the Palestinian parliament and eventually took over the Gaza Strip, resulting in another dictatorship. Some warn the same thing could happen in Egyptian elections with the Muslim Brotherhood. The key, Sharansky says, is who's allowed to participate.
Everybody will be permitted to participate, but only those who accept the rules of democracy.
Sharansky believes the West can play a role, and he's got a recommendation for the U.S. Congress.
I would immediately now bring amendment to all our assistance to Egypt, saying that the essential part of this assistance has to go to democratic institutions.
Sharansky is hopeful millions throughout the Middle East might find freedom.
If it will be done cleverly but firmly by the leaders of the free world. I believe it is possible today that finally Arabs in Egypt and in the other countries will stop living in fear society.
Time will tell, and history will judge if Sharansky's hope will bear fruit. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee just returned from Israel. He tells CBN News the problem is deeper than what's happening in the Middle East right now. In his opinion, the Obama administration's foreign policy has Israelis on edge.
What we now have is an administration, the Obama administration, that spends more time condemning Israel for building bedrooms in their own neighborhoods than they do for Iran building bombs that could be aimed at both Israel and the United States. This is insane. And we're putting so much pressure on the Israelis to give up what little tiny pieces of land they have in order that their sworn enemies could inhabit it and get even that much closer to the children of Israeli families. This is a policy that is inexplicable, very dangerous, very naive, and it has the Israelis quite unnerved.
And you can hear more from our interview with Mike Huckabee on our website, cbnnews.com.
Coming up, hoping for a miracle. Rescuers in New Zealand keep searching for survivors of this week's massive earthquakes.
Attention investors, now is the time to protect your retirement accounts and investments. Excessive government spending is devaluing the U.S. dollar and high rates of inflation are coming. Gold has tripled since 2001, and some experts predict the prices will climb another 100%. Buy gold now, direct and wholesale with United Gold Group. The demand for gold around the world is higher than ever. Foreign countries like China and India are buying up gold at record rates. Why? What do they know that you don't?
Call now and get your Gold Investors Kit absolutely free. Call in the next 5 minutes and receive The Secret to Owning Gold in Your Retirement Account, also absolutely free. Just call 1-800-758-5070. That's 1-800-758-5070.
This could be the most important call you make this year. United Gold Group, investing in America's future.
Something going on at home? Don't go preacher on me, man.
I'm not going preacher.
I'm your friend.
A man without hope must accept the past.
I am alone. Been alone since I buried my first boy.
And let faith guide him.
What is there to believe in?
You can never underestimate the power of grace.
Tomorrow, witness the power of forgiveness.
Are we in this together, man?
The Grace Card, rated PG-13, starts tomorrow.
If you're an individual, group, or business needing a dental plan, Avia Dental offers group plans for as little as $5 per month. Now members of your group can save up to 50% or more off a high-quality dental care. Everyone qualifies, and there's no waiting or limits on visits to the dentist. Visit aviadental.com or call 1-888-431-CARE. Avia Dental since 1994. Smile, you're with people who care.
Time is running out to find survivors from Tuesday's massive earthquake in New Zealand. The death toll now stands at 98. That's likely to rise, though. 200 people are still missing. Lori Johnson has the latest.
Hundreds of rescuers from Australia, Asia, and the United States are using heat-seeking cameras and sniffer dogs to try to find anyone still alive. One pastor said people are praying and are full of hope because of the miracles they've already witnessed.
We will hear testimony after testimony of God's power at work in the situation, people who have been miraculously rescued when they shouldn't have been, and people are going to, point to the hand of God and saying, God was with me in this situation. Obviously, that's not going to be the testimony of everybody, but there will be the good coming through it.
The quake measured 6.3 on the Richter scale, a force so powerful it flattened most buildings in the epicenter of Christchurch, a city of 300,000 people that before Tuesday was so beautiful it was a popular tourist destination. Our CBN partner in New Zealand, Shine TV, reports many Christchurch residents are learning they are now homeless.
They've gone home, they've escaped the carnage and the destruction of their office environment, made it home alive to find that their house has been damaged or even destroyed. And as a result, a lot of people were trying to sleep in parks overnight. There were people in shelters overnight, in the thousands.
But relief agencies like the Salvation Army are setting up shelters and handing out basic supplies to people who lost everything.
We're working really closely with the welfare centres through the welfare groups and civil defence, and our mandate is the supply of food. And so we're supplying the meals to those who are coming into the centres.
The mayor of Christchurch says aside from finding victims, his main concern is the broken water system. The total damage from the quake is estimated at $12 billion. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Angry citizens across the state of Wisconsin are taking steps now to recall some of their state senators. The move comes in response to the battle over the state's budget deficit. Citizens on both sides are using Facebook to organize. Some want to replace Republicans who are trying to eliminate union rights so the state can balance its budget. But others are upset with the Democrats who have fled the state to prevent a vote on the issue. They're even holding meetings and launching petition drives to recall those senators. Some of the doctors who were writing sick notes to union workers protesting in Wisconsin are now being investigated. Some of them could have their licenses suspended or even revoked. Carrie Pickett of the Washington Times spent some time in Wisconsin and shared her perspective with Chief Political Correspondent David Brody.
They're essentially treating the whole idea of the doctor-patient relationship as a big joke. I mean, think about it. You have doctors and teachers who are supposed to be role models to people, and the whole ironic thing here is that you have teachers who are supposed to scold kids for like forging sick notes.
And here they are doing the same.
Here they are doing the same thing.
Amazing. The American Medical Association could soon come out with a statement condemning the doctors' actions.
Up next, shocking discoveries at an abortion clinic. Why what authorities found is leading states to tighten control of abortions.
The doctor said to me, "Peggy, you don't understand. Pancreatic cancer is inoperable and incurable." And he says, "Well, Peggy, you've got 2 months to live." It was like he was telling me, go to the store. There was no compassion. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. My life was an hourglass. I was home laying on the couch, just dying. My sister Pam called the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. When I got there, I knew that I was going to be cared for. I met with the doctor after the tests were done and said, "How long do I have?" And he looked at me and he said, "Peggy, we did a lot of tests on you, and I never saw one thing stamped on the bottom of your foot that said you were going to die in 2 months. You have no expiration date." And I thought, wow.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America is unlike any other cancer hospital, full of hope, committed to your fight. We use every weapon: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, nutrition, spiritual support, and mind-body medicine. We surround you with a real team, working together, all under one roof.
Each time I went back to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, I responded better. My tumors were shrinking. Came back in September again, and they still couldn't see anything. I said, "You're kidding me." We'll see how it goes. We'll keep testing, but we can't see the tumors anymore.
Please call the number on your screen to speak with an oncology information specialist and receive a life-changing information kit and DVD packed with valuable information. Call now and learn about treatment options you may not even know exist.
It's really unbelievable how one doctor can tell me I have 2 months to live, and then I go to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America and they saved my life. Hope is a mainstay. Hope is everything.
Don't give up. Your fight is our fight. Call Cancer Treatment Centers of America today.
Today, Virginia passed a bill that will place tough new restrictions on abortion clinics. Abortion clinics there are now regulated like doctors' offices. The new law would place them in the same category as hospitals. That comes with stricter regulations and government oversight. Virginia abortion clinics fear this could force them to shut down. Pro-life groups are calling it a major victory.
We're talking about inspections, we're talking about licensing, we're talking about making sure they have life resuscitation equipment. I mean, some things that we think are pretty critical when you're doing invasive surgery. Well, the reality is we've seen in recent news around the country that there are clinics that are operating in horrific conditions, and I think they know that that could be the reality here in Virginia.
Pennsylvania is one of those states making headlines for its abortion clinics. An
abortion doctor there has been charged with murder. Now the state's governor is making sweeping changes to the agencies that oversee abortions. Charlene Israel has tonight's Focus Report from Philadelphia.
Philadelphia is known as the city of brotherly love, but recent headlines have cast a negative shadow over the city. When authorities raided the clinic of abortionist Kermit Gosnell last February, they were shocked.
The grand jury went to the scene wearing hazmat suits. It was filthy.
According to the 261-page grand jury report, fetuses were stuffed inside a refrigerator. Gosnell and other clinic workers face 8 counts of murder. Authorities say Gosnell reportedly killed scores more, but destroyed the records.
Case after case, Dr. Gosnell and his assistants induced labor, forced the live birth of viable babies in the 6th, 7th, and 8th month of pregnancy, and then killed those babies.
Late-term abortions are illegal in Pennsylvania. The DA says Gosnell tried to get around the law by starting the abortions at a Delaware clinic, then completing them in Philadelphia. Pro-life pastors from across Delaware are pushing for action.
The grand jury has evidence of at least 6 patients who were treated in Wilmington, then had abortions at Gosnell's clinic.
We're looking at slaughterhouses. I'm not calling them clinics. They're slaughterhouses.
The National Abortion Federation, which provides training, has now suspended work with the Delaware clinic, a move that only came after the grand jury investigation. Adele Finnegan is director of the Southeast Pennsylvania Pro-Life Union. She recalls allegations from a client that Planned Parenthood frequently referred women seeking late-term abortions to Gosnell's clinic.
And then she said, if you were at Planned Parenthood, they wouldn't do some of the abortions for you, but they would tell you about 38th and Lancaster.
CBN News contacted Planned Parenthood of southeastern Pennsylvania about the charges. They declined our request for an interview, but released this statement. Planned Parenthood strongly condemns the alleged actions of Dr. Kermit Gosnell. Planned Parenthood has never referred any patient to Dr. Gosnell's practice. What authorities say was happening here at this clinic in Philadelphia has shocked and saddened the entire country. But it's what pro-lifers believe is continually happening across the country.
This is not the first time. It's one of the worst cases of abuse that you can see, abuse of power, abuse of the medical shingle.
Officials say state regulators had not inspected Gosnell's clinic in nearly 20 years and ignored 46 lawsuits filed against the clinic. Governor Corbett has now introduced changes designed to protect the health and safety of women who use abortion facilities in the future. Among the new rules, abortion clinics must be inspected at least once a year. Clinics that fail to meet basic health standards will be closed. Abortion facilities will be added to the same Department of Health system used to monitor hospitals and other medical facilities. Pastor Herb Lusk of Greater Exodus Baptist Church runs a pregnancy care center in Philadelphia.
This is our answer to the house of horrors that took place in Philadelphia that everybody in the country knows about now.
His Hope Center counters that culture of death.
I'm just thankful that we have a center here in Philadelphia that will navigate poor mothers and people who are expecting to places where they can have safety.
Meanwhile, Gosnell is being held without bail and could face the death penalty.
It's not enough to prosecute the wrongdoing. We have to change the culture. That starts here. It starts now.
All encouraging signs to pro-lifers in Philadelphia and across the country, but they admit the battle is far from over.
The abortion industry is a very powerful economic machine. It's about money. The only thing that can stop that is people who are willing to do whatever they can in order to stand up for those children who are unborn, who can't speak for themselves.
Charlene Israel, CBN News.
The doctor said to me, Peggy, you don't understand. Pancreatic cancer is inoperable and incurable. And he says, well, Peggy, you've got 2 months to live. It was like he was telling me, go to the store. There was no compassion. Yeah, it was heartbreaking. My life was an hourglass. I was home, laying on the couch, just dying. My sister Pam called the Cancer Treatment Centers of America. When I got there, I knew that I was going to be cared for. I met with the doctor after the tests were done and said, how long do I have? And he looked at me and he said, Peggy, we did a lot of tests on you, and I never saw one thing stamped on the bottom of your foot that said you were going to die in 2 months. You have no expiration date. I thought, wow.
Cancer Treatment Centers of America is unlike any other cancer hospital, full of hope, committed to your fight. We use every weapon: surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, nutrition, spiritual support, and mind-body medicine. We surround you with a real team, working together, all under one roof.
Each time I went back to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, I responded better. My tumors were shrinking. Came back in September again, and they still couldn't see anything. I said, you're kidding me. We'll see how it goes. We'll keep testing, but we can't see the tumors anymore.
Please call the number on your screen to speak with an oncology information specialist and receive a life-changing information kit and DVD packed with valuable information. Call now and learn about treatment options you may not even know exist.
It's really unbelievable how one doctor can tell me I have 2 months to live, and then I go to the Cancer Treatment Centers of America and they save my life. Hope is a mainstay. Hope is everything.
Don't give up. Your fight is our fight. Call Cancer Treatment Centers of America today.
And finally, a Florida man is biking across America for a very good cause.
It is a labor of love that will test his endurance as well as his leg strength.
I was wrestling with how could I possibly pay back the gifts that were so freely given to me and my family by hospice care. And what grew out of that was one bike, one cause.
J.W. Fry will bike 8,000 miles from Florida all the way to Alaska. The 27-year-old is making the journey to raise money for hospice care, the organization that cared for his dying mother before she lost her battle to brain cancer. J.W. plans to finish in just 6 months.
Because hospice was created as an all-volunteer network in which visiting nurses came into homes and into communities, I want to reflect that by at the same time going and meeting people one-on-one in their communities. And I would love to show just how much life can be lived, how many people can be affected, and how much change you can wrought in the world in 6 months' time.
JW plans to bike up to 75 miles a day and will sleep in a tent. He's arranged to stop at several hospices along the way. I echo what he says. My mother was under hospice care before she died a couple of years ago. It was just wonderful. It really brought peace not only to her and comfort, but to us as a family. I salute the great work that those healthcare workers do in those places.
Yeah, we pray he stays healthy on his journey all the way to Alaska. That's going to do it for us.
Good night.